Most men live under a comforting illusion about women, until reality shatters it and forces them to see what only the Stoics were prepared to accept. Subscribe now, because what you're about to uncover might just realign how you view every relationship you've ever had. You walk through life thinking that effort equals love, that kindness earns loyalty, that vulnerability guarantees intimacy, but the Stoic man eventually learns, often too late, that nature doesn't operate by the rules of your emotions. One of the first truths you come to understand is that women are not looking for a man to solve their problems. They're testing whether you can hold your ground while they confront theirs. Marcus Aurelius warned against being passionate about things which are indifferent, and few lessons strike harder than realizing that your emotional sacrifices were never the currency you thought they were. You thought that sharing every fear, every dream, would forge a bond. Instead, it quietly unraveled her attraction, because while you were seeking connection, she was instinctively looking for strength. The shocking truth? Emotional exposure isn't intimacy. It can feel like weight, and weight without purpose becomes burden. The second truth hits when you realize that peace, not passion, is what holds her attention over time. You chased drama, surprises, long talks into the night, thinking that the relationship must always be intense to be real. But Epictetus reminds us, freedom is the only worthy goal in life, and that includes the freedom from being dragged into storms you could simply observe. A Stoic man doesn't chase chaos, he becomes a sanctuary from it. And women, whether they admit it or not, are drawn to men who can remain unmoved, not unkind, still, not cold. You find out she respects the man who doesn't explain himself constantly, who doesn't argue when she tests, who knows the game without resenting the player. There's a hidden demand beneath her challenges, a quiet craving to meet a man who doesn't flinch when his ego is poked, who can say no without guilt and yes without needing approval. That's where the third truth lives. She doesn't fall in love with your words, she falls in love with how you handle yourself when the world, or she, tries to shake you. And yet, most men are blind to this until the moment they're discarded for being too available, too understanding, too soft. You thought being agreeable made you good. You learned too late that it only made you predictable. Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. But you avoided the friction, hoping to preserve the peace. What you preserved was weakness." The fourth truth cuts deepest. She will admire you more for your purpose than for your affection. You gave her time, but neglected your mission. You made her your world, and she quietly stepped out of it. A Stoic man understands that his time is finite, and his purpose sacred. When you abandon your edge to become more likable, you lose the very essence that made you compelling in the first place. Here's the shocking part. The more you orbit around her, the more she feels lost in space. She doesn't want to be your reason for living. She wants to witness you living with reason. The fifth truth is cruel in its elegance. She watches what you tolerate. Every disrespect, every broken boundary, every lie you overlook sends a silent message. You do not value yourself enough to walk away. And if you don't value you, why should she? You remember the words of Aurelius again. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. You think forgiveness makes you noble, but when it comes without consequence, it makes you forgettable. She tests you not to see if you'll break, but to see if you'll stand tall. And when you don't, when you compromise your values for closeness, you become the very thing Stoicism warns against. Ruled by desire, enslaved by fear. So you tolerate more and she respects you less. Until one day the respect is gone, and with it her presence. Finally, the sixth truth is the one you'll resist the most. She doesn't want to fix you, she wants to feel safe near you. You thought love meant opening up every wound, asking her to help you heal, believing that vulnerability was the foundation of trust. But you learn, often when it's far too late, that what she needed wasn't your pain, it was your poise. She doesn't want to mother a broken boy. She wants to walk beside a man who's broken and still upright. A man who carries his scars without needing applause. A man who can suffer without spreading suffering. She may be nurturing, yes, but she is not your salvation. The Stoic knows this. No one will rescue you. You must rescue yourself. She can love you, but she cannot complete you, and the more you beg for that completion, the more you hollow out the attraction that once drew her in. You finally understand that strength isn't about never hurting. It's about never losing control because you're hurting. You think back on every moment you handed over your emotional regulation, hoping it would deepen the bond, and you see now how it made you unreliable. Inconsistency is instability, and that is not safety. And so the truths compound. She doesn't need your tears, she needs your composure. She doesn't crave perfection, she respects direction. She isn't testing to destroy you, she's testing to see if you'll destroy yourself. You begin to reframe every past heartbreak, every ghosting, every betrayal. It wasn't personal, it was feedback. Brutal, unspoken feedback that your Stoic development was incomplete. Not because you weren't emotional, but because you were emotionally undisciplined. And no one admires chaos wearing the mask of kindness. When you finally embody what Zeno meant by man conquers the world by conquering himself, you stop seeking approval and start radiating gravity. That's when everything changes. Because once you radiate gravity, everything either orbits or burns away, and this is the hidden seventh truth that no one tells you. Women are magnetized by men who are complete without them, not because they want to be irrelevant, but because they want to join a path that's already going somewhere. You thought love was about merging identities, dissolving into one another, but the Stoic man knows that individuation is not a threat to connection. It is the foundation of it. You must be a fortress, not a sponge. She can lean on you, but she must never drown in you. The shocking realization is that your stillness is more attractive than your devotion. The more you chase, the more you leak value. You believed being present 24/7 proved commitment, but all it proved was that you had nothing more important than her. A Stoic knows this is dangerous, not just to his mission, but to the very relationship he's trying to preserve. The paradox is cruel. The more you center her in your life, the more off-center she feels. She begins to question your gravity, your edge, your soul. She doesn't want a pet, she wants a partner. And partners walk side by side, not one orbiting the other like a planet worshipping its sun. When she senses you have abandoned your values to win her love, she may feel flattered, but only for a moment. Then the contempt grows, slowly, secretly, until one day she no longer sees you as a man to trust, only a man who needs. And neediness, as every Stoic discovers too late, is the most repelling energy a man can emit. Because at its core, it says, I cannot be whole without your validation. And if you cannot stand alone, you are not a man worth following. Stoicism demands a higher code. You must be driven not by what you gain, but by what you refuse to compromise. You start to realize how often you broke your own code to keep her happy, laughing at things you didn't find funny, apologizing for boundaries you never should have bent, listening to complaints without demanding solutions. Not because you're weak, but because you thought love meant absorbing discomfort to keep her close. But now you understand, love without self-respect is manipulation in disguise. She may not say it. She may not even know it consciously, but she senses it. And slowly, it erodes her respect for you. Until one day, you're not the man she admired. You're just the one who was always there. The one who folded. The one who waited for permission to lead. So you reforge yourself in silence. You stop explaining your worth and start embodying it. You don't announce changes, you live them. You become, in the words of Marcus Aurelius, the rock against which the waves break. And here's where it gets deeper. Once you do this, once you become the Stoic man who does not perform strength but simply is strong, women begin to respond differently. The same tests come, but now you don't flinch. The same emotional waves arrive, but you no longer ride them. You let them crash and pass. You stop over-communicating, not to punish her, but because you don't need to fill silence with explanations. You've made peace with being misunderstood. That's strength. You stop asking if she's mad, if she's okay, if you did something wrong. You observe, not react. You listen, not plead. And this composure, this emotional discipline, this is what triggers real feminine trust. Because now she knows you won't collapse under pressure. Now she knows your decisions aren't swayed by her moods. And now she knows that if she were to truly fall apart, you'd be there, unmoved, clear, grounded. Not because you suppress emotion, but because you are its master. She begins to speak differently to you. Softer, slower, more respect, less resistance. Not because you demanded it, but because you finally earned it by becoming the one thing no man becomes without pain, truly unfuckwithable. That's when the final truth reveals itself, one that feels both liberating and devastating. You never needed her love to be whole, and she never needed your protection to be free. But the moment you both stop needing, you are finally capable of choosing each other fully. And that's the rarest bond there is, two sovereigns walking together, not to complete each other, but to elevate what's already whole. You don't chase her anymore. You create a life that's magnetic. You don't lecture or debate, you embody. You don't panic when she pulls away. You stay centered, knowing that the man you've become never begs, never pleads, never performs. He simply is. He lives with virtue, as the Stoics taught, not for applause, not for affection, but because virtue is its own reward. You might lose people on this path. You might walk alone longer than you ever expected. But eventually she finds you, or another woman like her does. And when she arrives, she sees the truth in your silence, the strength in your gaze, the purpose in your steps. You don't need her. And that's why she stays. Subscribe. Because the next truth is even darker.